so plain and precious. Finally, the Book of Mormon is the keystone of testimony. Just as the arch crumbles if the keystone is removed, so does all the church stand or fall with the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. The enemies of the church understand this clearly.
Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell, having done the one video for the day, it's time for comment reply video to get caught up from yesterday, and I saw there's at least one that was added since last night's video. It was a hate comment. But it's likely that this video comment reply will only be for Jasmine's comment from last night that I ended on. And so Mark's request that I do stand-up comedy, we'll have to wait for the next one. Oh, I just did it, so there you go. This is not the Church of Christ which Joseph Smith founded. So I'll put a click on that. Alright, so Jasmine on LDS Church First Presidency Christmas Message 2023, the gift of incest, child bride polygamy. You do understand that if the world finds out about this, they're gonna be horrified. It's gonna make you look bad, missionaries. Little jailbaits going around the world telling people the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. It is not literal history. And thus, neither is the Bible. I just did the origin of the Jews. That was this morning's video, and it was to all the world, was my audience. And so, Jasmine specifically, and those watching generally, need to understand this. Everything and anything you read from the Bible is not literal history. It was Roman Emperor Constantine who first turned it into literal history. 325 CE. And so the Book of Mormon is not literal history. And so yes, the prophets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who make us now say the full name because Jesus is now angry with the name of Joseph's church. We can no longer say the name of Joseph's church because Jesus is angry with it. And that didn't occur to any single Mormon, as already online, Wikipedia, church news, everything the church touches and can get a hold of, they alter things to say that Joseph's church was that wrong name with Jesus in it. The church has to maintain the lie to maintain their legitimacy. And it's a lie. They have no legitimacy. And so as long as they have believers, they can continue their lie. Right, Mormons? Who send me hate comments and death threats and attempt to murder me and take away my agency by wrongfully incarcerating me for years of my life, of which I have the documents of the hitman and blah, blah, blah. Financial receipts. And so she's asking about what she found while she was studying Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 4. And as I mentioned, she needs to include verse 5, which is from the Psalm. That's where you need to think and understand from. And I'm thinking, I always get it wrong, and I did. Trying to find this passage is very tricky. It's not 119 because that starts the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and they didn't put the Hebrews in this edition for us, so it looks weird. So hold on, bear with me. I'll find it eventually, and maybe not. So we can try keywords for associative memory here. Eyes see not, ears hear not. Psalm 94? No. Nope, this isn't it. Let's see if the footnoter, not footnoter, didn't even catch it either. Eyes, ears, hands. Oh. So frustrating. Work, men's hands. There we are, 115. And 135. Yeah, both of those passages, Psalm 115 and Psalm 135. 115 starts it off right near the beginning, and 135 starts it off around verse 15. And so they have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, but they smell not. And we're going to have to click on it. Neither is there any breath in their mouths. They that make them are like unto them, so is everyone that trusteth in them. Okay? So now we can go to Jeremiah chapter 10, 1 through 4. And we'll read it over again. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the Goyim, not heathen. These are non-members, not necessarily apostates. It's Goyim in Hebrew. And be not dismayed at the sign. Notice I used singular, not the plural, of heaven. for the Goyim are dismayed at them. Now, in case you're wondering what dismayed means, it's feeling consternation or distress. And so those who are not Jewish are feeling distressed. And if we were to use consternation, it's a feeling of anxiety or dismay. And so this feeling of anxiety and stress and fear over the sign, that it's the Jewish authors who gave this in the first place, which came from the Egyptians. That's important to know, because this is the sign that I've been going over with you. It's the sign of the latter days, and it's a combination of multiple signs joined into one. And the spelling of it here in Jeremiah, in the biblical Hebrew text, which I convert into Paleo-Hebrew, is the sign, literally, of the latter days. It's awesome. That's why it's singular, even though it's plural, because multiple signs are brought in to be a part of it. But you need to understand that it's not general for signs. And this is different from the word sign translated into English in Isaiah's prophecy of the birth of the Jewish Christ, whose name is Emmanuel, who is the sun god at noonday, who cast his shadow on the earth to make the signs, from Jeremiah chapter 10. It is awesome when you know the original languages, because you get a whole bunch more learning and understanding than you would if you just read this incorrectly translated English. There's a lot of stuff missing. And even with the Paleo-Hebrew, or with the biblical Hebrew, you still miss out, because they're taking away from the actual knowledge if you use Paleo-Hebrew, which comes from different pictures than the Aramaic script, which I'm the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, so I know that it's not a phonetic language. It's a picture ideographic language. And so you literally have to know the pictures so that you can get the full understanding of the words that are being used. And so it's awesome. It's the first and last letter, and the last letter is doubled. Just like the sign for the latter days caused by Emmanuel, the sun god at noonday, when he's eclipsed, casting his shadow for the 3 days of darkness for the latter days. This was awesome. Thank you, Jasmine, for bringing this to my attention, because I had already figured this out, not knowing about that. And so I'm going to have to correct my picture to have the 2 taus, which are technically in Greek the chi for the X. And the letter A, which Paleo-Hebrew turns on its side, just like it is shown from outer space, casting the shadows on Earth, rather than standing upright like the Greeks turned it into. And so the previous information about that sign is also the name telling you here. And it's where we get Alpha and Omega from. The Paleo-Hebrew is not Omega, it's Tau, which is the Chi shape, X. And it's the reason why the Jewish authors claim that their character named Jesus is crucified on a cross rather than a T or a pole, which was what the Romans actually used. They're not giving you literal history. They're prophesying of their Christ, Emmanuel, the man like Moses from their law, Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19. Everybody's talking about this. It's all the same subject. It's just different stories, different characters, talking all about the same thing. And so that's what you need to know when you're reading over this passage here. And this information has been lost since I now have restored it with my decipherment of Paleo-Hebrew and Jasmine asking her question. It's awesome. So, Jeremiah 10, signs in the heavens, for they're dismayed. And so, yes, this sign prophecy is about when destruction would take place. But from that destruction, hopefully, Mormons would hearken to their Christ. Verse 40 of the Joseph Smith History, 1838. And be saved from that day that shall burn as an oven. Which, now again, since the Isaiah 63 prophecy was for the Jewish calendar 9/11 on Friday last week, it's now confirmed that the final day of darkness on 8 April 2024, which creates the two Taus over the United States of America, is that day that shall burn as an oven, from Revelation 19 and many other places from Joseph Smith as well, and in the Book of Mormon. That's the death sign in the heavens by Samuel the Lamanite. The birth sign is the birth sign of Isaiah and Revelation 12, 1, 2, and 5. Pay attention to the Joseph Smith translation. Pay attention to the Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi, chapter 1, starting in verse 8, Lehi's second vision, which is an exact same pattern match for Joseph Smith's second vision with verse 40. The Book of Mormon is not about the restoration of the gospel. It is a warning message about utter destruction, precisely as it stands in our New Testament. And so that's what I wanted to cover on that. The rest of it is what Jasmine is wanting to get an answer for, as she didn't understand the original Hebrew for signs. I was just happened to be there. And so, should I even go through all the trouble of making a new picture? Because I do need to update it, but it's so much work. So let's read the rest of it. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen. With the axe, they deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. And I'm including verse 5 because of the psalm. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. They're objects. They have no powers. Yeah, it's a trick with the bleeding eyes of Mary. They're conning you to come back to church. The deities have no power to possess inanimate objects. But we, as human beings, can read the Word, listen to other people, get ideas in our head that will cause us to do good or evil, i.e., love or hate. That's how you know whether a word is good or evil, whether it causes hatred or blesses other people's lives by being good. The Ten Commandments were not written to be enforced with slavery and hedge laws or the For Strength of the Youth pamphlet to be enforced and punish people for disobedience. It's to teach us to be good. And if we can't be good, if we violate it, we are committing what's called a crime. We are taking away the agency of other people, life, liberty, property of other people. We are haters. We are criminals. One and the same. So Ten Commandments is all about trying to get people to love. And it came from the Egyptian 42 affirmations in their temple ceremony at the judgment bar, judgment scene. You're supposed to be able to recite the 42 affirmations. I have not done this, I have not done that, I have not done this. It's the exact same thing as the Ten Commandments, except for 2 of them. And they don't have, thou shalt not have any other gods before me, and to not make idols. And they don't have keep the Sabbath day holy, because for the Egyptians, every day was a religious day. The temples were open every single day for you to go and worship if you chose. And so that's the difference. The Egyptians were the origin, and so there weren't migrants out of Egypt who then created new gods over the time. Okay, so this was still, you look for linguistic patterns to identify the source of the document, as Isaiah is revealed as during the Roman period time, likewise for Jeremiah. Even though Jeremiah and Isaiah have been confirmed as literal history characters in their respective time periods that they were assigned. There are other documents by the other countries that confirm this. But the actual documents of their prophecies have not been found. And so it ties them to the Roman period instead. So just understand that, and that's more complicated and higher level learning stuff. Okay? So Jasmine is now wanting to understand Christian Christmas as a result of it. As Christians like to kick out everybody else's religious holy days and only force everybody to worship Christmas. As they call it, a war on Christmas. This is bigoted and militant to enforce religious beliefs. Right, Mormons? It's Alma chapter 1. Enforcing religion with the sword. Sword. S-W-O-R-D. Sword. I could say sword if I want to be Swedish or other Eastern European country. That's sword. We need to change that. And so it's not talking about the Christmas tree. That's a different religion. That was a different thing that I'd have to get into. And it involves Esther, i.e. Ishtar, of the Babylonian Mesopotamian deities, for Purim of the Jews, the book of Esther, the book of Ishtar. That's where that comes from, because it's not literal history. It's prophecy of the latter days for next year, on the weekend of the 25th. Right before the final day of doom. Pisses me off that we have to go to that day, but here we are. At least the Isaiah 63 prophecy was fulfilled on 9/11 of the Jewish calendar last Friday. And so that's now what Joseph Smith was warning Mormons about, is that he will come on the 23rd of September 2017, the year of the first day of darkness, the signs in heaven of Jeremiah, in picture form. But that Mormons will definitely need to pay attention to him with his 6-hour series video on 9/11 and that whole Thanksgiving weekend, as he is wearing red. And so I didn't go in knowing the prophecy beforehand. It was afterwards, after I followed my inspiration. I did the videos based on the church's bombshell of the Danite ledger. And then knew the value and importance of it and did the video. And it happened to fall on the fulfillment of prophecy that Joseph Smith was giving us. Joseph Smith is a prophet, not because of a title. And Mormons just refuse to believe it. Refuse to believe Joseph Smith is a prophet. They call him a prophet because he has the title of prophet, not because he prophesies of the future. Because critics pressure Mormons to discredit Joseph Smith as a prophet, saying, well, this prophecy didn't come to pass, this prophecy didn't come to pass, that prophecy didn't come to pass. The Book of Mormon says cows. And so Mormons cave to critics, apologists, apologize because of the pressure of critics, and they cave. Not just what Abraham did to the church, to cave, when he knew what the truth was. But the pressure and threats of the church caused him to cave, just like the pressure and threats of critics caused Mormons to cave and to create a new scenario to have a spiritual witness feeling for. And so here I come. I'm saying, hey, Joseph Smith is legitimate. He's a translator. He's a prophet. He's a seer. He's a revelator. Mormons, hello. It's all real. It's all true. And nope, they send me hate comments, death threats, want to murder me, lock me up, destroy my life, erase me from history, torture me, cause family separation. It's a wonderful life. So no, they're not talking about Christmas tree. They're talking about an idol god made out of wood. And they made them out of stone and gold and silver, etc. And so she goes on, and so the Christmas tree is might as well look it up for you, because otherwise you'll have that question lingering. Origin of Christmas tree. It was first recorded to be used by the German Lutherans in the 16th century. And so this is after Luther was dead. He did not form his own church. It was the believers in Luther's teachings that created Lutheranism, so that you understand that. And so they placed it in the Cathedral of Strasbourg in 1539 under the leadership of the Protestant reformer Martin Bucer, not Martin Luther. Alrighty, so that's the origin of the Christmas tree. And so the pagan concept, yeah, they did for spring and rebirth, renewal, and Ishtar, and Purim for the Jews, which is actually Babylonian, Mesopotamian Ishtar, because the Jews got assimilated when they got taken hostage into Ur of Babylon. But that's something different. And so then you talk about you were exploring what you found. No, don't. No. No. Other people lie. They are not authorities. Nimrod is not Osiris. If anything, Nimrod is Narmer, the pellet of Narmer. And there is a close word match that just needs to be flipped around, and then there's the D at the end for that, because Nimrod would have to be two Hebrew words put together, because they don't have, for the most part, a four-letter word. And he's Egyptian. He's through Ham. He's not through Shem. But the Bible author says that he leaves his birthright blessing home to go up into Mesopotamia, where Shem's land is supposed to be, and forms Asher, where then the Tower of Babel comes from, as we then are falsely led to believe it's Ur of Babylon, with the Temple of Marduk. So there's so many problems when you have an incorrect translation of the biblical Hebrew text, and the biblical Hebrew text is also incorrectly translated from the original document. And so this is where I have to explain it for you, and why the misspelling that it's actually Narmer rather than Nimrod. Original Paleo-Hebrew script is similar to the Greeks, because they're of the same origin, and it's called Phoenician, but I call it Paleo-Hebrew because Paleo-Hebrew kept the exact same Phoenician script. And so there's no need for me to go beyond calling it Phoenician separate from Paleo-Hebrew. They're one and the same. And we just don't have enough documents to see if there is a spelling difference between Paleo-Hebrew and Phoenician. And since I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, i.e. Phoenician, and have tied it to the Greek, as their similarities in the picture shapes, linear picture shapes, with the Egyptian hieroglyphs. That's the difference from William Foxwell Albright's supposed decipherment in order to claim that Proto-Sinaitic is older than Phoenician. It is literally one big joke, and it's just a small little pamphlet, and it's all trash. Because Sir Alan Gardner told William Foxwell Albright to just impose the acronym theory to make it work. And so the credibility of Sir Alan Gardner just tanked as he's telling William Foxwell Albright to not use science to decipher Paleo-Hebrew. And so, yes, everything is wrong. Every single letter does not correspond with the Egyptian hieroglyph that it is supposed to, let alone they're forcing the Proto-Sinaitic hieroglyphs to match with the Paleo-Hebrew. But yeah, they were able to recognize that it is Semitic, but it's not the origin of the alphabet. So it was a new language by those who were working in the caves there in Sinai, who had the religious beliefs, even though they were using Mesopotamian Semitic language for it. It was a new creation much, much later. So the origin is still Phoenician. And anybody who still perpetuates William Foxwell Albright's theory is wrong. I know there's a popular guy who turned the biblical Hebrew text into Proto-Sinaitic characters, and he has the vocabulary and grammar books in the Proto-Sinaitic characters, and it's all fun and dandy until you actually check it. You realize it's wrong. And so, yes, that's another one of my projects on my massive pile of projects that I'm way behind on, is to correct Proto-Sinaitic for people, as well as Paleo-Greek and Greek and Aramaic and cuneiform at the different stages, and Egyptian, and so on and so forth. So academia shows Paleo-Hebrew, and I had to put the pictures because that was a later discovery, the signs from Jeremiah, which now, yeah, that needs to be put in there to help illustrate that from the language, from deciphering the script, because they teach you in the vocabulary how to decipher the script. So, and so these Masoretes, 800 to 1000 CE, changed the Paleo-Hebrew script into Aramaic. Aramaic is of the Mesopotamian origin, but there is still a merging with the Paleo-Hebrew script and an attempt to alter it. It's Reformed Paleo-Hebrew. Reformed Hebrew from the Book of Mormon. Just like Reformed Egyptian. And so the Aleph of Aramaic is not the same as Aleph of Paleo-Hebrew, as the Aleph in Aramaic is the the flail and the shepherd's crook of Pharaoh that you see him cross over his chest as he's mummified. That's the Aleph in Aramaic character. And so there is a pictorial ideographic difference in meaning of words. Aramaic also utilizes suffix determinatives rather than prefix determinatives for Paleo-Hebrew. Adjectives, to simply put it. It's a letter used as an adjective combined with the two-letter word to give a fuller understanding of the word. You also need to understand that the biblical Hebrew text separated the text into separate words. The original forgetting the name now, Dead Sea Scrolls shows us that the text was all just one line, right to left, one line, all together, no word separation. You need to understand that, because these Masoretes are going to screw up the translation of the biblical Hebrew text. And this is how you know. And I've found the Dead Sea Scroll of Genesis 1. And yes, Joseph Smith was right in the King Follett Discourse, Mormons. You should have trusted him. You didn't. There is no B at the beginning. And so they also added vowels into the Paleo-Hebrew words. Those vowels were just other letters of the alphabet that similarly Greek turned into vowels as well. And so when I did my theory testing on the Paleo-Hebrew script, I went to the vocabulary using Brown, Driver, and Briggs's Hebrew English lexicon and devoweled every single word. And then the test was to check two-letter word meanings within the three-letter word. So the first two, the last two, and the first and the last, right underneath that word. It's much thicker than William Foxwell Albright's little pamphlet. Much thicker. And so that's how I was able to identify the prefix and suffix determinatives that were in there. And so then that's the next thing that I did, is running a test on the prefix determinatives and then running a test on the suffix determinatives. And that's how I distinguish between Paleo-Hebrew and Aramaic with the differences. But yes, there are some crossovers in the Bible because we're dealing with the Roman period time where both Aramaic and Paleo-Hebrew existed. And so there needs to be an understanding of both languages if you're going to correctly translate the biblical text from its original source document during the Dead Sea Scrolls period time, the Roman period time. And then the Jews, the Masoretes, then went and sealed the fate of the biblical Hebrew text into one and only one translation that only the Jews are the authoritative source for, by putting in vowel points. And apparently there was even some musical annotation notes also in the Masoretic text as well, to recite them as hymns. There's some musical notations also put in there in coded form that they would understand. So that needs to be understood. And so just because you read something in your English version of the Bible, and the King James version of the Bible is the worst translation in the universe, but likewise, all Christian translations into English are also wrong. And all of them need to be redone. Joseph Smith says that Luther's German text is the most doctrinally correct to the doctrine that Joseph Smith was trying to use for his religion, but obviously he's trying to tell us from the Book of Mormon that it's the learning of the Jews pre-captivity Babylon, which is Egyptian. And so every single story from the Bible can be tied to an Egyptian story. All the prophecies are Egyptian prophecies. And so Narmer is Nimrod in historical closest context. But it's not Ur of Babylon, it's not Mesopotamia that he conquered. And Asher that he established is phonetically Osiris. And so he's not Osiris, but the land is a close match. It's phonetically similar, but there is some problems because it's not quite the same character that you'd need to see. Nimrod. Shinar. Yeah. Land of Shinar. And then out of the land went forth Asher. That's Assyria, as the Roman period author is telling us here. And so that's Genesis 10:11. And so what a blue letter Bible. Because there is a character in Paleo-Hebrew that is Osiris's symbol. And it is an S, but it's not the other S, which is a different symbol for water. And it has to do with Babel. Genesis 10. What verse was it again? 11. Okay. So King James Version gets switched over to WLC, which is Westminster Leningrad Codex, because the Masoretic Jewish text of the Jewish Publication Society refuses to let anybody share it, even though it's public domain now. No, there's Ur, the Egyptian, well, no, that it needs to be reversed, and that's another thing for the language, which is also part of Jewish Kabbalah. But yes, it is Asher, the water symbol, the S for the water symbol, which is in between the word for which is light. The Aleph, the A, alpha, and the R for the God symbol. And so when it says the light of the body, or the eyes are the light of the body in Scripture, that's what it's referring to here. Light has the A, which is the eye of Horus. Eyes are light. That's why it's an ideographic vocabulary. And so, yeah, it is not the Semitic, or it's so many different languages. So let me go to Psalm 119. Scroll down. Nun Samak. Yeah, that was right. I got it right. It's the pole with the 3 crosses. That's the symbol of Osiris. And he got that symbol at Babylon. Babel, not Babylon. The N at the end is, again, a suffix determinative for kingdom, which is in Paleo-Hebrew. They do use suffix determinatives too. But the root word, it's prefix determinatives. And so, I don't need that on the screen anymore. And so what happens is the story of Osiris is that he was the first king of Egypt. He is Narmer. But because it's not Narmer, everybody assumes there's pre, and there is a document that Egyptologists don't acknowledge as legitimate because the rules of the pharaohs are way too long, you know, like it says in our Bible. Gary Greenberg indicates that that is for dynasty reigns, the dynasties of the different names, rather than the kings of those dynasties. And that would make sense. But we need a document to confirm that there were different kings within each of those main dynasties to confirm that theory. I mean, without a document, you can't do anything with it. And so Osiris goes way back beyond Narmer anyway, as his story predates the pyramid texts, because the pyramid texts are written as if it was already common knowledge about Osiris, Horus, Isis, and others. And the story is that he was a good king, ruled over Egypt, everybody was prosperous, everybody was happy. His brother Set was jealous, wanted to rule instead. So he murdered Osiris, his brother, put him in a coffin, nailed it with 9-inch nails, and then set it afloat on the Nile River. It sailed up, because that's just the way it is. Because of the elevation, gravity pulls it up, which is down. And it beached on the Lebanese city of Babel, there in Lebanon. And the Lebanon king came to the beach and saw that the coffin had transformed into a tree, a cedar of Lebanon. And so he then carved it into the Dej pillar of Osiris, this pole with the 3 lines across, which is a symbol for a cedar of Lebanon. And that's the symbol of Osiris. And that's the Samak in Paleo-Hebrew, which is Semitic phonetics Hebrew pronunciation. And so that's what the biblical author during the Roman period, many millennia later, is referring to. But you got to understand, not literal history. It is a prophecy for the latter-day Christ. All of them are. And so you got to think of Nimrod as the birthright blessing son who founds the latter-day religion, restoring it. Right, Joseph Smith Jr.? Who was then murdered by his fellow brother, Brigham. Exact same pattern match. right, Mormons. And so, no, he wasn't real. Therefore, he wasn't born on December 25th. I don't know if we know the birth date of Narmer, because again, it would require an actual document to be found that contains it. But we'll check to see if anybody has found such a document, going to him in Wikipedia. And there's a Scorpion King. It's Hollywood. You can't trust them to be accurate. They take liberties. And I need to get rid of this. How do I get rid of this? I don't want to. I want to get rid of it. There we go. Christmas time. Donate. Give us money. Give. Alright. Rain beginning at a date estimated to fall in the range 3,273 to 2,987 BCE. And so Assyriologists love to use this against Egyptologists to claim that Assyria was older than Egypt, and claimed that Narmer's palette stole from the Mesopotamian pictoglyphs, ideographs. Wrong. And so he was the successor to the proto-dynastic King Ka. There's a movie title for you. Proto-dynastic King Ka, starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who is being recasted from his old character, the Scorpion King. And so, and all of this is speculation. Who was Menes, because of another document that was found, and so forth. And Hor-Aha. So just understand, when they're speculating, they throw in words like confusing, the questions of, they don't know. And rather than just saying, we don't know, just presenting the facts from the evidence for us. But, yeah, his name was Deseret. A Sedge and B name, personal or birth name. Because they're thinking that Narmer is a Horus name, while Menes is a Sedge and B name, the birth name. But again, it's confusing, and you see the word confusing here, so you just got to take it with a grain of salt and not present it as factual. But I have done a translation of the Narmer palette. I just haven't published it. I don't think I've published it. Maybe. I don't know. That's another project, is to go through all my files, pull out all the published works, pull out all the works that didn't get published, and put them all together and eliminate the duplicates, and then proceed with those projects that need to be either updated, having already been published, or worked on to get them publishable, to put on academia.edu rather than Amazon, because that's a waste, even though I can get paid that way. But I don't have to worry about it thanks to the abuses of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They've determined how my life is going to be for the rest of my life. And it's confusing to government officers. And so, as I've talked long enough that the dryer is finished and the washing machine is wrapping up, yeah, that's with Narmer. So we'll get this duplicated picture because I retired. I transferred all my files off the laptop onto a storage device. I wasn't going to worry about it anymore because the church is fooling around about the day that she'll burn as an oven. And now we find out that it's 8 April 2024. So rather than search for it on my files, I'll just make it easy since I'm here, and we'll use this as the thumbnail picture for you. We'll probably put the solar-powered baby Jesus with sunglasses for his head, maybe, to make it different. And so the 25th, yeah, that it's confusing. Horus and this comes from Dorothy M. Murdoch, and she's dead now. She died on Christmas, which is kind of sad. But Christians all cheered, saying that Jesus now is real. Trinitarian, not real Jesus, is now real. Take that, Mormons. Because he got revenge on Dorothy for giving her cancer and dying on Christmas. Yeah, so Christ-like. But there's claims that Horus was born on the 25th, which actually was the 23rd, which was Joseph Smith's birthday. And then there's other claims that the Dionysus, with the Dionysus rituals, also is a pattern match to Horus and thus Jesus, and his birthday was on the 25th, and then there's others that had their birthday on the 25th, and this also ties into the stars of belt of Osiris, or Orion, which was Osiris in the Egyptian constellation calendar or star charts. And so it's not Orion, it's Osiris for the Egyptians. And then the three stars of the belt point to the star Sirius, which is Horus in the Egyptian symbol, and he's underneath the constellation of Isis, which is no longer visible for us as an actual constellation, as she's been removed, especially since she's Egyptian anyway. And so, yes, it's the concept of a woman giving birth by having the baby underneath the woman. And so the star Sirius, the dog star, does tie into the actual Christ's birth date being in the dog year for the Chinese calendar. And thus the dog star, which is Horus, which is therefore his star. But you have to understand the Earth and astronomy and how the Earth rotates, and it rotates on an axis, and the calendars that we have and all that stuff also factor in, because we get a new North Star every couple or several thousand years. The Egyptians had a Sothic cycle in their calendar systems, as well as a civil and religious calendar, and so the December 25th is complicated, and we have too many ignorant people trying to claim that they know things for December 25th. But Joseph Smith being born on the 23rd of December is something Mormons should have paid attention to, and why he was named Joseph, and why he was chosen to be the first keeper of the Holy Grail. Actually, he is the Holy Grail under Joseph Smith Sr., Hiram, for the Latter-day Christ. And so the birthday of the Latter-day Christ, the author of the myth of St. Patrick, which he got from the English Druids, who were the sun gods. They just didn't say their name. It was the secret name, the hidden name of Amun, the sun god of Egyptians, and which became God Sol when they finally had to reveal their name to the world, with Thomas Godsol, right there at the turn of the 1500s. How would I know that? You've not been following my channel, have you? And so yes, St. Patrick's death day is the birthday for the Latter-day Christ. And there's many other connections for that, as Deuteronomy 19 talks about false accusers, and the punishment for the false accuser is to be the same of the punishment that he wanted for the victim of his false accusation. Thus, Purim, which happens to be around that time period too, and so Brigham Young cooed Joseph Smith's church in 1838, made false accusations against Joseph Smith, and took over the Quorum of the 12 to replace Joseph Smith as the head of the church. And in order to do so, he had to kick out Thomas B. Marsh. And Brigham Young sent Thomas B. Marsh a letter saying, I'm going to have you excommunicated on the 17th of March, 1839. And it obviously didn't show because the Danites threatened him to murder him, and he had just left. He wanted nothing to do with the criminal church that was being cooed. And so Deuteronomy 19 kicks in. Brigham Young made a false accusation about the leadership of the church and excommunicated the Quorum of the 12 on the 17th of March. So Brigham Young and his church that he cooed Joseph Smith with is to be cooed itself by the man like Moses through Hiram Smith, who would be born on the 17th of March. And it would be 1970 because in 2020, which is 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem, for the date of the annular solar eclipse over Russia. And yeah, this is complicated if you're hearing this for the first time. So just bear with me. It's not essential to your eternal salvation as per yet. It's higher level learning. And I have videos that I've gone over all these in greater detail for you. But it's 20 years from the 8 April 2024 final day of the latter days. Thus, the Exodus, Lehi leaves Jerusalem, the Exodus, in 2020. That's what Joseph Smith Sr. is rewriting the 116 pages to tell Mormons about, is that your Christ will be 50 years old, the Jubilee year of the Jews, in 2020, thus 1970, 17th of March, 1970. And so yes, women, those of you who are well aware that the Relief Society was formed by Joseph Smith, and he let them run it the way he wanted, and if they wanted to have a priesthood with priesthood offices, it was up to them. And yeah, 17th of March, 1842, because women give birth to babies. And so yeah, Joseph Smith knew the birth date. The Smiths knew the birth dates as well. And they were trying to let Mormons know, trying to warn you, let you know when he's coming, what year and the day he would give his 6-hour video presentation to you so that you would not be deceived by Lucifer, the head of the great and abominable church, baby name meaning, who would tell you that he's angry with the name of Joseph Smith's church. You must say his name, Jesus. And so, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff involved in there. Because when you're running scientific tests, you can't just believe whatever you want to believe and spew it and claim you're authoritative. You've got to do the research. You've got to assemble all of the evidence, combine it together, and run theory-developed tests with sound Socratic method arguments, and get 3 confirmations to establish facts. And I've done that. And so she concludes with, it's not naive. No, everybody gets confused unless you heard the special import album by Prince for 1995, and it's out of print. Nobody has it, and nobody even knows it existed. But I had it. My dad threw it away, trying to erase my history. He talks about the correct translation of Christmas. And it's not because it's the birthday of Christ. Mass does not mean birth. Mass means dismissal. It's the dismissal of Christ. Catholics dismiss the Christ every single year. And Catholic means the downward motion of the whole, because cath comes from cathode. Downward motion. Catheter. The downward motion of your urine. Although I think that's calf rather than calf, but you get the point. And so you'll see in the Gospels of the Greek, you'll see the Gospel according to. This comes from kata, which is cath for Catholic. They had to create a new meaning to fix Catholic, so that it didn't mean the downward motion of the whole, but instead according to the whole. So, yes, Christmas is the dismissal of Christ because it's the last Mass of the year. And so, yeah, every Mass throughout the year, it's the dismissal. But the last one is called the Christ Mass because it's the end of the year. Not the birth. Which corresponds with his death and ascension into heaven, the dismissal. Fun times, good times. So, yeah, that answers all your questions. And you now have a billion more. So just understand, the Bible is not literal history, and the rest of the world is stupid. Don't trust them. Learn how to learn first so that you can identify the lies of other people. And be able to do your own research when necessary. Alrighty? So there we go. Wow, hour and 13 minutes today. And so we'll click on that one. And, we got a few others. So maybe if there's a church news thing tonight, I can get you guys in, as long as there's no other comments that get added. Like the hate comment guy.